We'll roll through all of that stuff as we get there. The first thing to do, though, is talk about this season's anime and what I've watched so far. So it's the exact same format. I can't add all of the same categories yet because I haven't really backlogged anything. But I do have our usual spectrum of must watch, very good, interesting, okay, boring, and bad. And down here we have everything that I have watched thus far. And we're just going to go through it systematically, one by one, starting with the first one, Bleach, which I just watched tonight. So I'm just putting that right there for now. I will preface this with I am not specifically a Bleach fan, but most of my issues have been production side of it. I found it kind of hard to watch because of various filler elements, because of the lackluster fight scenes and all of that. Powers were cool, characters were really good, story was very good, but when it came to production, its production value versus its length, I felt like it didn't have that sort of surface level draw power to keep me fixated on it. Like the story was good, but not good enough for me to get deeply invested in it. I do like a lot of the characters and all of that. That said, Blood War has been significantly better, and for this season, I'll put it right there with a pin in that because there is something I do need to mention. This core of Bleach, the third core of Bleach, is the second anime to overtake Full Metal Alchemist on my anime list, which there's some fuckery going on with that, okay? I will admit that it's not the greatest system to judge things by. It is literally just popular vote. If you know anything about popular vote, it can be kind of retarded. And if it's not controlled to some extent, people will manipulate it. As evidenced by the fact that Frieren jumped up by 0.18 or something like that. It went from like a 9.14 to a 9.33 in a couple of days because the fan base has been systematically trying to keep it at the top on my anime list. I should stop fidgeting. So there's that. Yet Bleach has scored a 9.15 on my anime list with this core. And now I expect that to drop a little bit because ReZero opened with the highest isekai rating of all time at 9.0, and it's since dropped to 8.96, which has taken it from the number 10 slot to the number 17 slot on my anime list. But still, Bleach has opened up incredibly strong with this core. That's what I wanted to say. It's done very good for itself. I'm thoroughly satisfied with that first episode. There's a lot happening and a lot going on there that I like. It's still continuing off of previous seasons, so it obviously isn't something you can just pick up and go with on this alone, but it sort of brought an end to the battle against Squad Zero, and now it's Ichigo and Squad versus the Stern Ritter Elite is what it has gone into. The next one on the list, Dandadan. So I actually watched this a while ago, like a month ago, when it premiered in theaters. And obviously I'm putting it up here because it's freaking fantastic. It is goofy, energetic, very fun, a good story, good characters, good animation. Love it all around. It's one of the few 10 out of 10 experiences that you will actually find this season, which there is 2, this being one of them. We'll get to the other one eventually. But I would say that I like this more than Bleach because its first episode is just great. There's so much good about it, and I never ended up getting around to watching the dub because my player that I was using decided to malfunction and wouldn't let me do anything. And then a 1-hour oven install that I was doing today turned into 6 hours worth of retrofitting a cabinet. Yeah. It was miserable. But I got a cheeseburger and some cash for it, so I guess it all works out. Okay, so those are the two I remember off the top of my head. Now I actually have to go to my notes and look at where I placed these. So, the next one on the list is a rom-com called Tying the Knot with an Amagami Sister. And honestly, I didn't expect to be very interested in this one. However, the first episode was very, very good. It's a little bit of the harem thing going on, but it looks like the kind of story that's going to have like one winner at the very end. And the premise is this orphan kid who wants to study and like go to medical school in Kyoto is given a place to stay at a shrine. Ironically. And it just so happens that three girls around his age live there with their father, and they take care of the shrine. So they believe in like the gods and stuff and like spirituality and all of that sort of stuff. He doesn't. And he's very like the cynical atheist kind of type. But he's not cruel. He's actually a good character. I do like the animation and the artwork that they do for this. I like the characters. Like you have the oldest sister who is like a total ditz and an airhead. So like not very like mature or older sisterly. The middle sister is like the most normal one, but she is still a tsundere who is like absolutely opposed to having this guy around because their beliefs are completely opposed, and you can tell that they're going to put those two together from the very start. And then there's the little sister who is somewhat younger. I think she's like 14 and is a total pervert. Like the guy gets there and she immediately starts looking through his baggage for porn magazines. Yeah, she's wild. But they do a good job of making the characters likable, of making the show entertaining. I thought it was pretty good. Is it the best rom-com out there? No. It probably won't even be my top 10 if the first episode is any like indication of its quality. Top 10 of the year, I should say. But it's very enjoyable, and I do recommend at least giving it a shot. Most notorious talker. So originally I was going to put this one in okay. That's what my notes say. But I'm actually going to move this one up to interesting because, geez, pardon me. I'm going to move this one up to interesting because as I've thought about it, like, I do like the concept of it and all. It's just, I wouldn't put it very good or must watch this season because right now it still feels like a rough project. Like it's someone's first outing as a story. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No. You're going to have those kinds of things regardless. But it feels like it could have done with a little bit slower pacing because it feels like it blitzed through a lot of information that might have been a little bit more important, or that might have made certain events a little bit more important. Or a little bit more impactful in that first episode. Maybe splitting that first episode into two would have probably been would probably have been better for delivery if you ask me. But I get where they're trying to go to try and like get through the introductory stuff and set up what's happening so that you can move right along to the actual main body of the plot. Fair enough. Okay. And that's literally just that's an issue of taste there. If you know anything about me, I do not need to explain this. ReZero will indubitably be the best anime of the series in my opinion. Why? for no other reason than I am ReZero's number one simp. It's just a fact. It is a matter of fact, okay? ReZero is one of the best anime out there. It is fantastic. This first episode did a really good job of getting all of the slice of life stuff that happened in volume 16. And there is one thing I need to correct. I did say some stuff about how they changed Lolimancer to like Kittymancer or little kid user. The actual term that was used in Japanese, the direct translation is little girl user. And the Lolimancer term is actually a legacy fan translation that was used so much that it's been kept around, that was loved so much it's been kept around. So I was wrong on that, and I do need to correct that. Ice on Twitter, like the go-to guy for like just about any kind of ReZero content, pointed that out, so I needed to correct it. Either way, it did a really good job. There are some minor discrepancies. There were some translation issues that ultimately got fixed on Crunchyroll. But overall, did a very good job. They surprised me with how good the animation looked at the very end, the last 10 minutes of the episode. And I am absolutely surprised they actually went all in on animating that scene because it's kind of brutal. And more chaos is only going to ensue. Hail, Jam. Nice to see ya. So yeah, ReZero, I'm putting at the top of must watch. Now, Mecha Ude. This one caught my attention because it looked like it could be fun. And I think it's actually very good. Yeah, I think it's better than Tying the Knot with an Amagami Sister. It was actually surprisingly interesting. And the premise is that there are these machines that they're like alien life forms, and they merge with humans, and they take the form of like mechanical arms and stuff. So like they basically augment human beings in a symbiotic relationship. And the premise is that the main character accidentally stumbles upon one of these aliens and merges with it, and he can't get too far away from it without the thing dying, because it like needs to stay near him to draw power off of him and all that. Meanwhile, there are two groups of people who are after him because he's accidentally acquired the power of this one mechanical arm. And obviously one is like an evil corporation and the other is like a resistance group. So you can barely see her, but there's this red-haired chick here. She's shown up a couple of times already, and she's sort of chased the protagonist around because she's part of the resistance group. And the first episode ends with her showing up as a transfer student in his class and moving her desk intentionally over to sit right next to him. I feel like even like with the heavy use of CGI it has for like the mechanical aliens, it still looks really good. The design feels like very, very shonen, which is not a knock against it. Shonens are perfectly fine. I'm just saying, like, it looks like you would expect it to be like a Pokemon or a Digimon kind of thing with the costume designs and all that. But I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. It's definitely worth a watch. So next on the list, another thing I'm not a terribly huge fan of is magical girl anime. Like, I generally don't mess with this stuff because it's just not my thing. But some of them do occasionally catch my eye. Like last season, I talked very heavily about the magical girl and the evil lieutenant used to be arch enemies. Great anime, very short though. And unfortunately, the author of that manga died. So, yeah. RIP. I would have liked to see an end to that story. Anyway, this story focuses on the tale of a fresh graduate looking for a job attending a bunch of interviews, and the only thing she feels like she's good at is memorizing things. And she actually is pretty good at that, like hearing people's orders once and instantly remembering them at a cafe. And yeah. But she runs into this incident at one of her job interviews where a monster appears in the interview room. And they have to call for a magical girl because magical girls are like public servants in this universe. And there's a huge problem. She ends up actually like helping the magical girl in battle and gets recruited to that magical girl's company. And she finally finds her job, and that's the end of the episode. I thought it was pretty good. I'm actually going to put it up in very good because I did thoroughly enjoy this one. It has some unique charms to it. I like the character designs. There are some interesting choices, but it impressed me, really. I had somewhat had my eye on this since like the trailer started coming out for it. And yeah, liked it. I would absolutely recommend giving this one at least a little bit of a shot. Okay? Okay, moving on. Lockdown Zone Level X. So this one I have a lot to say about, and I'm putting it in interesting because I can't quite say that it's good, but I can't quite say that I want to drop it because I want to continue it, but I know it's not good. It's just straight up. And like the bottom two are reserved specifically for the ones that I end up dropping. So this one has caught my interest because it's somewhat of a thriller and like a psychological horror entry. But the animation for it is interesting in and of itself. It's basically animated like you would expect a fan animation of like a manga scene. Like, you know how you see all those like Gojo versus Sukuna animations of the manga panels? That's what it looks like. Okay? It's like they did a motion manga animation style, and most of the series is just the main character reading texts and texting her mom. Well, at least the first episode is anyway. And the premise is that this chick wakes up and everything is terribly dark around, and she sees that her mom is calling her, and they start texting, and turns out her building is in lockdown and no one can get near it because there's some sort of unknown entity occupying the building. And if she makes any sort of noise, it will attract the monster. She's not allowed to go out of her room, and she's not allowed to look out the window. Interesting premise in and of itself, and I actually did end up kind of liking the intro theme. So yeah. Interesting. I don't know if I can recommend it because it's definitely not going to be for everyone. I'm going to continue watching it until I get bored of it or finish it. Loner Life in Another World. I think it's just okay because it is very stereotypical isekai trope. Well, I shouldn't say isekai trope. It is very stereotypical with its isekai tropes. The skills and all that, and like I got garbage skills and everyone else got OP skills and yada yada yada, all that, but I'm actually like secretly overpowered. And yeah, it's kind of funny. And it's not terrible by any means, but I'm interested where it's going to go with all of its usual tropes. I can't really say much other than that, other than like the premise is basically this guy doesn't want to get reincarnated. He doesn't want to deal with other people. So he tries to run away from being reincarnated. And that means he ends up summoned. He ends up getting summoned last and is stuck with all the leftover skills that are all just garbage. But he finds out they all have some level of applicability to surviving on his own. So he works with it. So yeah, it's just okay. It's just okay. I don't think it's something particularly amazing. So, let this grieving soul rest. I actually think that belongs right here. I think it's pretty interesting. I like that it's the kind that it sort of takes on that like faker trope that the Eminence and Shadow and other things like that do. But I don't feel like the guy in charge is an absolute clown show. Like, he knows he sucks and he just wants to get out of there because he doesn't want to drag anyone else down. But everything he does seems to work out into more and more of the same. Is it interesting? Yeah. Is it super amazingly well written? I feel like it's a little bit too much of like the game world element to it, with like roles and all of that, and parties and yada yada yada. Delving into dungeons to find treasures and all of that. That's not a terrible thing, but I just kind of get sick of it over time, like constantly seeing like the same sort of game tropes being employed in these series. Some series do it pretty well, others not so much, and this is the one that just kind of does at it. However, I did enjoy it. It was somewhat likable. And like I said, this guy is the master, the main character of this one is the master of like the world's most famous clan or whatever. But he is like one of the weakest treasure hunters, as they're called, to ever exist. Sorry, for whatever reason, when I spend a lot of time talking on these streams, I get stuffed up real bad. So 4 more, people. 4 more. Reborn as Reborn in an Otomo. I forget the actual title, but it's something Otomo game. Villainess goes down in history. Okay. I actually find this one pretty interesting. I did end up enjoying it. It's still very much like the same sort of Otome games tropes that I don't like. Generally, when people start talking about like Otome game reincarnation isekais, I immediately go, ugh, fuck that. It's one of those things where like I would consider myself an isekai guy. I do like isekais, but that is one trope that I generally just do not care for. It's like I can't get interested in it because we're like reborn in a dating sim, all that kind of stuff. This one, however, is a little bit interesting because you actually like see the main character like doing all her training and stuff and getting better and all that. She has an interesting premise. She's actually like trying to play the role of the villainess, and actually like be in opposition to people. It's played out quite interestingly so far. I did like the first episode. Okay, this one is the one that will probably get clipped when I say the title. But I watched the first episode of How I Accidentally Attended an All Guys Mixer. Yep. So basically the premise is there's like 3 guys all going to college together, and they get invited to a mixer by a girl at their college. It turns out the girl and all her friends work at a cross-dressing bar. So when the college dudes show up, all the girls are dressed in drag and they look like dudes, so they're like really super confused. Yeah. I do like the character archetypes for all of the characters. It just sort of weirds me out to see 6 guys, quote unquote, on screen at any given moment, because I don't think they ever really show you what these chicks look like when they're not dressed for work. It feels like they always have an excuse to be dressed like they're going to work. like a bite or something right on my elbow where it's resting on my desk. It's just okay. I did like some of the elements of it, but the translations were very interesting. Like, hold up, I actually have to reverse trap. Yeah, kind of. I have to pull up some of the translations because I screenshotted them. They were just wild. Screenshots. Yeah, here we go. Let's see if I can pull this up really quick. Sent. It won't let. Oops. Okay, I'll go back to that. Share screen. Window. Here we go. I'll share this. So this is one of them. Obviously. Like, it's obvious whoever's translating it isn't fully a professional, and there's more to this because there are some other ones that give us a little bit of context. Let's put that down. Present, share screen, window, like this one. This is an actual part of, here we go, the translation. So TL, this is my first published translation and subtitling, sorry. So please bear with me. Anything with asterisks are probably mistranslations. Thank you. So I don't really want to dunk too terribly much on this person, but the subtitles for this one were kind of weird for that. And there's one more I think I have in here that I do want to share. Just to paint a little bit more context. That's my backstage. I don't need to show you all that. So here we go. So yeah, I'm hoping someone picks this series up. I can't spend another 2 hours translating and 2 hours subtitling. I love the manga. Please read it too. Just an interesting little bit of like that. That's like the actual like intro to the series that there, like the first 3 minutes, all of those things happen. And some of the translations are a little bit rough, and it kind of shows you how like direct translation sometimes just feels clunky and awkward. But yeah, it's interesting enough to make me want to like continue watching it, but I don't think it's terribly amazing. 2 more. So, 365 days to the wedding. I'm going to put it here. Now, this one caught my interest because, like, as, it's been somewhat talked about across the series. Hold on a second. It's been somewhat talked about over last season because it was coming out. At least among the guys that I follow. And the premise is that the 2 characters in question work for a travel agency, and they're going to open a new branch in Alaska. And one of the people at the office is going to have to go manage that branch, and nobody wants to go to Alaska. So the main character, who is totally an awkward overthinker, and the main heroine, who is like the kudere over planner, abnormal chick, decide that they're going to fake their marriage to avoid being sent to Alaska. So it ends up they tell that to their boss, like, okay, we'll do this, we'll keep it secret on the down low, nobody needs to know. Well, it ends up spiraling out of control because the boss tells the entire office and it turns into a huge party. So they then have to like make up a whole fake relationship and all that and pretend like they're engaged. And yeah. Do I like it? I feel like it could get better as time goes on. I feel like it might be one of those like slow burn kind of things that over the time we watch the series, it'll get better and better. But right now, I do not think it's particularly amazing. So, yeah, that's just me. It has my interest, but I don't think it is anything terribly amazing yet. We'll see where it goes, though. Maybe if they like end up developing feelings really fast for each other, that would like they spend a lot of time. They end up spending a lot of time together. That's what I should say, and like falling in love within this first season. That would be an interesting turnabout. I'm not saying like there needs to be a confession or anything. I'm just saying like if they realize they have feelings for the other person in this season, that would be a good pace for it. Probably will have more development than Spy Family or Rent It. Yeah, right? No, I'm proud to say that I never jumped on the Spy Family hype train. I always thought it was just okay. But everyone was obsessed with how cute Anya was, and I'm just like, Anya is fucking Grogu for the anime community. The character sucks. But kawaii, okay? I'll probably get crucified for that one. So, the last one we have is You Are Miss Servant. And I'm actually going to move this one up to bottom of very good because it's actually an interesting premise. It's very fun, and I end up actually like liking the character because I feel like in that first episode, you get a whole lot more development than you would expect, particularly out of the heroine, the servant girl. So it's a rom-com of sorts about a guy who is living alone, like a high schooler, and all of a sudden this maid shows up and says that she was recommended to work at that place by her boss, and he quickly finds out she's actually an assassin and she has no skill with like housework whatsoever, and only ends up deciding to hire her after she saves his life. And from there, like the rest of the episode is pretty sweet, actually. Like she's totally a klutz. Like when it comes to assassin work, she's great, but she made an absolute mess of just receiving some cleaning equipment from him to start the job. It's fun, it's cute, I do like it. I think it's very good. It's kind of along the same lines of what I said about the Magical Girl and the Evil Lieutenant used to be arch enemies. It's a nice, like, fluffy series right now. Very, like, warm, wholesome vibes. So, yeah, this is, right now, the rankings for all the anime that I have watched this week. Obviously, we will come back to this weekly and readjust these levels as needed, but that just about wraps up going over all of what I've watched. And yeah, I would have added Blue Box in here too if I had the time, but like I said earlier, a 1 hour oven install that was supposed to be just a morning thing for a couple $100 cash turned into a 6 hour cabinet retrofit. It ate up almost all of my day. So I got home, watched a little bit of anime, and then set up the stream. Oh, and helped close up a pool. That's another thing I did.